Hello and welcome to Campaigns and Conquests. I'm so glad you guys are joining us today for another exciting episode. I'm your co host, Magenta, and let me introduce our host, Storm. How's it going, Storm?
How's it going, everybody?
I hope everyone's doing well out there. So we are going to be continuing our building series today, and this time we're going to kind of move on from the world itself to the inhabitants of the world, so that we can kind of get some flesh on the bones, so to speak, and make it a little more interesting. Because after all, what is a great big empty land? How much fun is that? You got to have some people in it, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So
So,
I want us to start off with, um, in this case, we're going to cover kind of a couple of topics. But again, I want to welcome anyone who would like to participate. If anyone's up watching us live tonight, I know we're doing this a little bit later than the usual. But for any night owls out there who are looking to join us and have a little late night chat, please come on up. Everybody is welcome, and we're going to be, of course, hosting this on our YouTube channels and other channels as well. For anyone who misses it tonight, be able to tune in. So you're welcome to participate by um, comments, and you can also email me. My email address is campaignsandconquest.magenta@gmail.com. So you can reach out to me if you have anything that you'd like to share with us or any commentary. Um, Opinions are always welcome. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Storm to kind of start us off by telling us what's the most important thing about an NPC when you're creating them.
well, I mean, it depends a little bit on what your uh, purpose for the NPC is. Um, there is a several different uses for them, I suppose. Some are drivers of the story. Some are backstory. In the way I create worlds, I like to have every person be an NPC. Now, uh, uh, that doesn't mean that I'm going to make 10,000 NPCs in some country that I've created. Some of it comes up um, as improvisation, but prominent members of communities, leaders of nations, heroes, um, there's all sorts of different outstanding type of people that help make up the character of a world and portions of it.
So, are you suggesting that when you're looking to create your NPCs for a world building session, that you would start with the most impactful, maybe like the leaders first, like political figures or key monsters or magic users that might have the greatest influence on the world?
Mm-hmm. That's right. People that would be well known by everybody, that would have some effect on uh, national politics or the country's culture or the world's culture, something of that nature. Heroes from war, celebrated cultural icons, perhaps a very well known and successful bard. Not all too dissimilar from today's world, where you have celebrities for various things, or at least well known, prominent figures. Somebody who has a large company, perhaps you might be aware of. There's all sorts of different categories like that. Mm-hmm.
So a very wealthy merchant might be in the kind of world that we're doing, because obviously it's a It's more of a fantasy-based world, so we're talking about pre-industrial type of civilization. There's nobody out there with cars or radios or TVs, but in this world, you'd be looking at a merchant who was, maybe ran a large shipping enterprise or controlled the market, handled all of the trade between nations for agriculture or weapons trade or those types of things.
Exactly, exactly. That just because there isn't, machinery doesn't mean there can't be tycoons, and there might be something like that. Exactly that.
Right, where if you wanna sell grain in this town, you gotta go through,
Right.
I don't
They
know,
may,
whatever name you would give them.
right. And they may be legitimate, they may be illegitimate, or there may be a little bit of both. Some guys or gals or whatever beings might have a little side gig that's a little less legal, shady, whatever, things like that. So,
Right.
mhm. But these
Okay,
help.
so,
There's two
sorry, go ahead.
reasons. Two reasons to, well, three really, is they can be the subject of an adventure. What I like to have the campaign is something that goes on for a long period of time, regular sessions. But I also like to leave the thing uh, open to the prospect of having what they call the one-off, which is uh, like the module that D&D called them adventure modules. You'd buy them at the store or wherever your game products were sold, and it was a inclusive story that was told beginning to end. It was run. Uh, they're typically called one-offs now. And I like to have that possibility for people who want to do them. And sometimes a prominent figure can play into that one-off. Maybe they're kidnapped and held ransom, and one of their underlings is searching for a way to rescue them, or they're staging a coup against their own government, or there's a myriad of different possibilities for scenarios that might include some prominent member of the country, for good or for worse. So, but they also drive the world. I like, as we've spoken over many of these sessions, I like to have a world that turns. I like to have something going on all the time, even if it's not uh, germane to what the party wants to do. A living, breathing world, and that requires that there's governments and intrigue and industry moving at all times. So they help do that.
This is a question just kind of for my own curiosity here. What do you think as far as when you have a world like that that has, different political intrigues and different kind of like our world that we've created here is kind of a powder keg. You've got built-in conflicts because you've got the conflict between a uh, a land and island whose whole entire religion is based on the worship of these dragons, which are wreaking havoc in other lands elsewhere, neighboring lands. You've got one land that disdains magic, others that embrace it. You've got all of these natural built-in, fracture points there, and how often would you say the role of a party or a group who is a group of players in the world, how likely is it for them to set off that powder keg and cause something to change? Do you kind of build that into the system, or do you just play it by feel as a DM? Or is it something that just, whatever was going to happen, and you already know it before your players step onto the field?
Oh no, it all
I
depends
know I
on
threw a
their
lot at you.
determination. What's that?
I threw a lot at you with that question. Sorry if that was a
Sure.
complex one there.
Yeah, it all depends, and that's I don't ever like it when people respond to me with it depends, but sometimes it is the proper answer. And um, looking to, I mean, can you look to start a war? Sure. It's I don't want to get too preachy or get into too much real world, but just as an example, I know that a lot of people are taught at a certain level of education that the First World War pretty much started with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. And
Right.
while that was a catalyst, to be sure, and certainly the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were, the real story that led up to that is more complex and lengthy. And the same thing with the Second World War for the Americans. Certainly, don't want to detract from anybody, Pearl Harbor and all that. And I'll get off of regular history, but the point of bringing these up is that it's difficult for one single act or even a series of acts from relatively small players to be the sole reason why major powers or even minor countries might go to war. But can they contribute? Sure. Can their actions sometimes be part of the story as to why it's come to be? Yes. Can you be
Yeah, I'm thinking Guardians of the Galaxy here with the, stealing the one battery and the whole,
right, right. Yeah, it's
for
not
those,
it's
if you know, you know. Yeah.
right, exactly. You have just seen it. But spoiler alert, as it were, but uh it's not out of the realm of possibility. But and it may very well be the scenario that you're playing. You may be
Right.
looking for to have that word. They're trying to prevent something like that. Um,
Is that something you would suggest discussing with your players before you begin the game? And is the game, do you have the ability? I assume, I mean, as the dungeon master or game master, you really have all the abilities to kind of tailor make the game the way that you wish. But is that something you would suggest that game masters or DMs discuss with their players if they want a game where they can affect the entire, the events of the world, or if they just really want a small scale kind of, they're just ordinary, small, not galactic heroes, so to speak, but more ordinary adventurers.
yeah, I mean, it's all what you create. If you want to make a small campaign or a one-off adventure as a dungeon master, you're creating your own, or game master, if whatever fits for you as a label. Um, you make it and then you bill it to people to play. And if it's something that's limited in scope, then uh, that's how you would describe it to them. And some people find that attractive. Lord knows I got enough people that say, well, I don't have the time and so on. I might be able to play for a couple of weeks. Okay, well, here's a shorter thing that has uh, just a couple of weeks worth of adventure in it. And that,
Like
I
a
would imagine,
quick instance or a quick adventure that's going to be wrapped up and it isn't going to be like an ongoing year
sure,
long thing. Whereas
right.
other people are looking for like a community that's going to be built, that's going to continue on for, a year or more. They're looking to build a group of friends, lifelong friends out of it.
Something like that. Sure. I mean, I'm might date myself with these analogies, but something like a bridge club or bowling league where
Right.
you meet every week or so, and there's a social aspect to it that surrounds the game that you're playing. Sure.
I don't understand though how we have these bridge clubs, but all of our bridges are failing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, little humor. I know what
Hmm.
bridge is. I was just messing. But anyway, sorry. I don't mean to be a distraction here. I do want to give out to, because I've seen in my experience with game playing, there are kind of some common things that NPCs do, like some repeat roles, so to speak. Do you want to kind of go over some of those that a NPC can fulfill, and what you want to look for when you're creating a character that does each of these? Like there's always the one that you go to that gives you the quest, who's like, I my dog is sick and I need a special potion for him. Can you help me out? That kind
Sure.
of thing.
Yeah.
Or
Mhm. They might
go ahead.
advance the plot. Yeah. I'm sorry. Did I jump on you? I didn't mean to step over you. Were
No,
you?
Sorry about that. I was reacting to my cat. She has joined our session tonight. You might hear her in the background. She likes to pretend she's a dove sometimes, but yeah, sorry about that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it depends. There's on your style of gaming. Are you doing what? I don't know if this is considered a pejorative now. It may very well be. It's not intended as such. I'm just using it as as a label to where the way you play is up to you. But if you're doing a railroad, as they call it, where it's a plot line, the NPC might be the initiator of the plot. It might advance the plot. They might be the plot. Go save my son from the clutches of the evil orcs or whatever have you. So they can serve all sorts of purposes. You might have your players learn some information through rumors or through interrogation from an NPC. He might be the adversary. They might be allies. A lot of games in the past. I don't know how much often some of the newer players do this, but we had a lot of hireling men at arms back in the late 70s, and they were all NPCs generally. There were people that, mercenaries that you were literally paying to help bolster your collective combat power as a party, and they would, at least with us, they were almost exclusively controlled by the dungeon master as NPCs in a game where there's what they like to use as far as terminology these days is full player agency. Oh, my air quotes didn't work. You couldn't see them. A little bit of so anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, anyway, but the full a sandbox campaign or that kind of agency where they can do whatever they want. I use NPCs the way I do it with those things. That's kind of what I strive for when I make worlds. Is there anybody? I don't want to have a theme park. We've used this analogy before, but it's worth repeating. We play Lotro, both me and Magenta play Lotro, Lord of the Rings Online, which is a massive multiplayer online game. And you advance yourself through levels similar to Dungeons and Dragons by accruing experience points. You do that by doing small little quests. I was going to do the air quotes again, and they don't work, but that's what they call them, quests. This little mission, and when you complete it, you get so much experience points, and you keep going through the level. These quests are bequeathed to you from, if that's the right term, I don't even know what it is, but they're given to you by little characters, and you go to a character that's standing in a particular location, and you press a button on your keyboard to interact with them, and they say a few things, and then they give you a choice of,
Usually something rude. Anyone who's played Lotro knows what I mean.
yeah,
Stop bothering me. Yeah,
right,
that
yeah.
kind of
There's a lot
stuff.
of them. Yeah, there's a lot of them that aren't. Yeah, it's true, not a lack of politeness, but they have some small personality program to them slightly. A couple of things that they say, and that's it. They're almost like a kiosk, and
And
they're
none of them can walk. I will tell
right. They
you
don't
this
move.
isn't they don't
Hmm.
move.
Hmm.
And if they need to tell something to someone else, they don't have cell phones, so they send you on a mission to go and deliver a message, and then you go and talk to the other person, and then the other person immediately sends you back
Right.
to
Right.
talk to them. So yeah, that's loads of fun.
Because they can't move. They're a static kiosk that you run back and forth and talk to, and
Yeah.
I don't like to use NPCs like that. There's times where I've played games where you had something like that, where there was a barkeep, and he or she was just there behind that bar no matter what, and the players could come back and forth, and I like to have that barkeep doing things,
If I
moving
had a
around.
barkeep in a game, in fact, in our game, there is going to be a barkeep named Brandy up there in the pirate area for sure.
Yeah, see, but
Uh-huh.
but the
And if you know, you know.
but that's it. And I like to have something where you can talk to anybody. Everybody's an NPC because the world is breathing. and you might not have much of a conversation. If you go to some rando off the street, you probably won't have much more than, why are you talking to me? I've got things to do, but they may know where to go. I, example, I was playing with a group of people as a DM, and they were wandering the streets of a fairly major town, but they didn't know how to get around in the town. But they had this kind of Lotro like mentality from other games that you had to go to some specific area and find a specific person before you could get any information. It never even occurred to any of them to just stop somebody on the street and go, "Hey, I need directions." They just didn't do it. I think because they're used to worlds where a crowd of people on a street in a city is at best just part of the description of, it's part of the set. They don't have they you know I like them to be part of the cast.
To
So,
be fair,
well,
though, that happens in real life too. Every woman could tell you men will never stop for directions.
yeah,
Just
right,
won't.
sure, but you never know, of course, and a DM who can improvise that you don't have to know everything about them. You don't have to have a full NPC sheet about something like that, but you just improvise
Right.
a character that either has information, for whatever reason, that might give it out if the right things are said, or you just come up with some small talk or whatever you want. So, but in my worlds, you can walk into any random house, you know, and talk to somebody if they're home, and they'll probably say, "What the hell are you doing in my house?" But um, break or
That's
call the
what I'd
cops
be saying.
for B&E or something. But
Get out
they're
of my house.
sure, but more substantial, I shouldn't say substantial, but somebody who has a little bit more importance, possibly somebody who might fight, somebody who might be involved deeper in the story than, why are you bothering me on the side of the street? Um, they would probably have a stat block, or
Now, this brings up another point, though, too. How do you, as a dungeon master or game master, recommend that you make the people that they do want to talk to stand out in some way? Because I will tell you, as a player, sometimes that can be a bit frustrating when you're like, okay, I know I need to get information from somewhere. I know I need to. I don't want to waste time talking to everybody. I think that's why people are looking for the person to talk to, if you know what I mean. The
Mhm.
in air quotes, because my air quotes aren't working either. But anyway, um, you kind of sometimes it's like you go into the bar and it's not the barkeep who's got the information, it's the guy sitting by the fire smoking a pipe. Or it's the busboy or something like that, and you just how do you know, or how do you identify that person to the players, or do you? I mean, do you just, hey, good luck. If you get lucky and you pick the right person, well, then, your your mission can continue. Otherwise, you're going to maybe stay overnight and have a drink until you figure it out, right?
Right. It depends on how you are running things. If you're running a railroad, you probably have some way of pointing to the right person and leading them into that direction so that they come in contact with that person to get the information. If you're running something that's more open, well, it leads to having players that need to be more inquisitive and need to be willing to document things a little bit better than some players do. It's a different style of play, but there's a lot of, at least with me, there's a lot of deduction that is necessary. So we need to talk to somebody. I mean, some of these are so variable depending on what's happened. Um, do you, let's put it this way. Do you really need a specific scenario to explain how it works?
Right.
You know, because it could be any sort
Or
of way. But probably the best way to put it is a man. And this is hard for some people, I suppose, these days with all the electronics we have. But imagine being somewhere where you don't have any of that, and you need information. How are you
I'm
going to get it?
immediately
You
thinking,
know?
I'm having a flashback to Star Trek 4, where they're Uhura and Sulu are like, "Where do you keep the nuclear weapons?" Or no, it was
Right.
Chekhov.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Randomly asking people, and he's got that Russian accent. It's
Sure. And
like,
there's and
yeah,
right.
he has no idea that he should not be asking people that way.
And that's it. That's what
Yeah.
that's another part. I was discussing this on Twitter about, and we've discussed it here too. Internal consistency, having different cultures, understanding that if you just show up in in a place that's foreign to you, some of these. I don't want to sound like This isn't about putting other people down, but I am trying to differentiate myself from the norm in that turning it up a little bit as far as interactivity makes a richer and more interesting world. If you walk in to a new world and it's just another medieval foundation where everything's medieval buildings and medieval goings on, and here's your tavern and here's your temple, and everybody speaks English, and all you have to do is talk to them a little bit or whatever. But if you I mean, we're not talking just about D&D, but as an example, D&D was based on medieval Europe, but it wasn't all the same. You start, France was still there. Britain, they not always in the same forms, but there was people that spoke English, spoke French, spoke German, and if you didn't, it was going to be a little hard for you. So, and you did, and they all didn't have the same cultures. Doing something in one country may be just an average thing to do. It may insult somebody in another. So, while the Chekhov scene, if you're familiar with it, was for comedic relief, and it generated its own subplot where they had to go get him out because in that culture they were as stated by Kirk earlier in the movie, is extremely paranoid culture. And during the Cold War, the Russians were the enemy, and you didn't expect to see one walking down the streets of LA or anything like that. So
Now,
somebody,
especially not asking about nuclear weapons. Where
right,
do you
boy,
keep the nuclear weapons?
right, given the nature of the Cold War and what it was about, right, right, it was the most. So there's where something like that could happen in a medieval world if you add in culture and stuff like that. So your interactions with NPCs and what they're used for is can be fairly customizable and unique to what you're trying to achieve. Um, that's why uh, it's better to kind of explain to people how you do it as far as a method of making them, and and then the imagination that the DM brings or the world creator brings to his world will kind of dictate where this one is this particular NPC is going to be used or how it's going to be used versus that one somewhere else. And maybe the best way to do that
What?
is to come
Oh,
up with some of
sorry.
our own that are relevant to the world that we're talking about. That probably might be the best way to explain and show people.
Before we get to that, one last step here, because I've been doing some thinking. I did a little bit of background here, and just have a kind of minimum quick profile kind of guide that you probably want to include for each of these. You want to have a name, obviously, for them. Unless they're just, I mean, if it's so inconsequential, just person on the street, you don't really need a name for that. But if they're an actual character who's going to be interacting in some way or playing any kind of sustained role, they're going to need a name, and an age. Not like you don't have to know their birth date, but an idea of, are they a younger person? Are they a, um, adult, or an elder, or what? Or maybe they're an eternal being. Who knows? It could be anything in some of these worlds. You want to make sure you're defining their, like, are they human? Are they a different species? Are they, what kind of being they are? So identify them that way, and what kind of job they might have. Like, what is their official role being presented at? And then they might have a secondary role, like we talked about, someone whose official profession might be, grain merchant, but they're also smuggling, booze on the side, little grain whiskey or something. I mean, grain alcohol on the side. Who knows what they might, have up their sleeve elsewise. And then some personality traits. Are they a friendly person? Are they the type of person who's going to bite your head off when you talk to them, but they will give you answers if you push them? I mean, just a little bit about what they're like and a brief, idea of their appearance. Are they,
Sure. Given,
skinny,
mhm.
tall, whatever they might be?
Just imagine, and the best advice is to organize it as such. Imagine what you want to relay about this person or species or whatever it is, uh, to the players. Like Magenta says, obviously, you'd want to put looks in the category that you could give to players, because if they've laid eyes on them, obviously they're going to know what he looks like. They're going to want that description. Personality, basically, how are they going to act when spoken to? Sure, things like that. Other details you may want to hold in reserve for a variety of reasons, and you put that in a different section for the NPC, or at least a second section that's more for um, the DM. Maybe he is a smuggler. He's probably not going to go blabbering about it. Maybe he might be. Maybe he's not a very smart one, or he's got a loose tongue because of the alcohol or whatever. But maybe he's keeping it on the down low, and he won't be disclosing that. Maybe that's a secret that you want your players to get figure out themselves. So you
Or
put that
maybe
sort of,
he's overly verbose because he's talking so much to keep you from getting a chance to ask your questions as
could be.
a means of distraction,
That's a
Hey, let
method.
me show you these new turnips I just
Sure,
harvested. Oh, they're good. Look at the quality of these things. This is what you're
sure,
really after, isn't it?
sure. But as
Just to kind of keep you off track.
Right, and that's the kind of thing you put in, when you're writing it out as far as a method. You would put that out. Here's the public information. Here's the private information. For me, I don't put stat blocks in public information. That's up to you. Some people play differently. I don't do that. So, but that would be the way you'd write it out. And of course, that would include how you would play them as the DM, posing as that character, as far as like we said, they're the way that they carry themselves. But that's kind of the basics of making one up. Um,
Well, let's do that. Let's pick a place on the map. Can you expand the world map, and let's kind of start, maybe with Videngera here, because we kind of talked about a grain merchant who might be a smuggler. How about we put one of those in our story?
right, right. That's
And
uh,
Videngera is that's the land, the name of the country means the belly of the dragon. That's where they grow all the food.
pardon
It's
me
right
while
next to Voda, just to
buttons get
the
pushed.
east of Voda.
Right.
I kind of feel like I've lived in this world. Is that weird or what? Or am I just
Good.
like
It's
spending
working. I
a lot
hope
of time? Huh?
that's good. That's good. But keep it that way, and hopefully, with that feeling can be uh, something that is shared with the people who are helping with us, and or playing in the world, because that's the goal. That's what we want people to feel like it's something they've been to, or something they're currently living in. So that's good. Pardon me while I load up the map, um, so we can screen share with you here. Should have had it open up at the first place, but you get old, you have
Yeah,
a
I have
senior
this.
moment, you forget the basics.
I have this habit of dropping things on you in a surprise like fashion, like, hey, why don't we just do this right in the middle of the show?
Right.
I probably could have told you I was going to ask for this to be, but it feels like the right thing to do to just at least create one character that we're going to have in here.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope it's not my computer. Things have been moving quite slow today on this. That took a lot longer than it should have, and I'm concerned about my machine. So if you see something quirky happening, my apologies for the technical difficulties. All
We
righty.
just had a close call with something quirky because my assistant over here, whose official name is Fur Baby Squeakers of the Cupcake Clan. That's her name. She's my kitty. She had names from her previous owners. She belonged to an 8-year-old girl
Can you
who
see this?
had to move, and yeah, and she I inherited her from the cat distribution network. You know, when they had to move, she was gifted to me. But the little girl called her Cupcake. Um, and then the mom called her Squeakers because she has a squeaky little meow. And I knew I was not going to remember either one. So I just decided I would call her baby. But she just seems like a cat who needed multiple names. So she is officially Fur Baby Squeakers of the Cupcake Clan. That's her full name, which the vets look at me like I'm out of my damn mind every time I bring up her name. But what are you going to do, right?
Right, right.
Ah, that's an interesting name. Cad Chad, this must be in Canton because Chad Kasor Shard. What the heck is that? What part of the map are we looking at there, Storm?
I'm having a little, again, please bear with me with technical difficulties. It's not being as responsive as I expected, so it's a little bit slow. Where are we looking for here?
We're looking
I
for
don't,
Vittengera right there. I'm
yeah,
imagining there's going to be right in Tickholder. There's going to be a little. Well, Tickholder might need to move closer to the water over there so that it can be a port town, or maybe let's go with Jernathorn.
that's the one
Jernathor.
we came up with
Yeah,
three or.
that's
Hmm.
yeah, so that's gonna be where the everything gets loaded. All the grain gets loaded and it goes across Lake Sarth into Valea and Voda. And they're doing a back and forth trade. So Valea is sending over the fertilizer, and Jernathorn is sending over food, and those ships are not unloading and trading cargo for obvious reasons, we hope. You really don't want to put your food on the manure barge, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Yep. Um, so we want a grain smuggler. Now,
Yeah, and he's actually officially a very reputable businessman, and he
sure.
does reputable business, but he
Uh-huh.
also does some business in bootlegging liquor because grain. He's got a still or two or three.
Okay, but who why does he need to do that? Who's
Because Voda is a land that they're strictly religious. They're not generally producing their own alcohol, if you get my meaning,
okay? Now their religion is about dragons.
right?
It doesn't necessarily, it's not, you know what I mean?
Their religion is about dragons, but it's also about control. I mean, you have to have a really tight control over the population to get them to sacrifice people every 12 years.
Hmm.
And you need a really good excuse to send people to the embers of the flame, of the sacred flame,
Right.
for, the intense kind of pressure that they're putting on them to compete to be the one to be sacrificed. I mean, you don't convert someone to make them that zealous a believer without doing some pretty hardcore, you know, not proselytizing. You would just flat out have to impose your religion on people in that situation. You would have to be very harsh about it. And you in order to get people to go there, I mean, they're being sent there for infractions of the faith, things
Okay.
that they're doing wrong. So they
Sure.
would probably have a whole lot of sins on the list that they're not allowed to do. And if they get caught, they get sent to the embers of the sacred flame. But that
Hmm.
doesn't stop people, because as we know, people will do, I mean, they're driven to do certain things just on, no matter what you do, no matter how harsh the punishment might be, they're gonna step out of line,
Right.
especially the young people.
Right. Right.
So they're going to look for a place to go dancing, even though their town doesn't allow it. They're going to look for that footloose moment. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right.
And for that, they're going to be looking for our, bootlegger.
Okay. So in their country, though, liquor is not legal.
Correct.
Okay. All righty. All righty.
Dancing probably isn't either. You could
Footloose.
just put you could just put John
Oh.
Lithgow in charge of Voda, and it would be okay.
See, now there you go. That's something that I do that it doesn't bother me. I don't know. Some people I've seen sneer at stuff like this, but to take a character from a movie and personify that, don't just complete directly rip it off, but to go for that vibe. And I mean, he's not going to be wearing the costume that Lithgow wore in that movie or anything like that. But to have a guy that is the Elliot Ness for their religion, or maybe the head of the religion, Mr. Super Pious, look a little bit like Lithgow. I, I love doing stuff like that and giving a little bit of a vibe. So he might be like
Uh,
the top inquisitor or something like that, the keeper of the
Correct.
faith.
And
Yeah,
to be clear, in my mind, it's something that I do not do to mock, because I think that his performance in that movie was outstanding.
no, it's not. It's
I think
just
that it's,
yeah,
yeah.
he's a great
So it's
actor.
an homage,
Sure,
and anybody who's from that genre or understands or ever watched that movie, and I'm kind of dating myself as I say this, and it's sad to say the things that I take for granted as being common cultural knowledge now are no longer common cultural knowledge, because,
sure.
time marches on. But for anyone who ever saw that movie, you know instantly the kind of character you're talking about when you say
Yeah,
Jonathan Lithgow in
yeah.
Footloose.
Hmm.
Everybody knows.
Hmm. And that would be fine. And I like I say, get if you describe him as how Lithgow looks, that's just hilarious to me. And I think it's a neat little thing. You're not stealing anything. It's not going to be completely look like, but it's so sure. But all right. So there's a keeper of the faith, and so
He
there's
is,
a
but there's an inquisitor, there's a judge, there's a religious organization that, and it's pervasive throughout Voda, and they will send you to the embers of the flame. And there's also a thing where I would imagine that they would have a kind of set where, even parents, if their children are sent, are taken, um, to become zealous converts,
mhm,
um, they they have an honor bestowed on them, kind of similar to the way that we look at it when we have, people volunteer for military service or something like that. It's an honor. Um, I think that's something that all civilizations have a way of doing when they really want something that ordinarily the populace would say, "Oh, hell no, I'm not sending my child in that dangerous situation just because they're 18 and, you know, give me a real good reason." And the good reason is it's an honor for your family. Your family will be remembered. The sacrifice will be remembered. And there is some value to that. I'm not putting that down. I want to be clear. I have the greatest respect for people who do serve. But I also think that that impulse of where those honors can be bestowed for things that are maybe not like military service, because you got to protect your country from enemies that may want to harm you, for sure. But to sacrifice yourself to a dragon, maybe that's a misuse of that bestowal of honor, and that's something that Voda is doing to get people to do something that's really not in their best interest. Or is it? It's kind of up to you as a player to decide, I guess. Do you
Mhm.
think that Voda's on the right track? And if they stop, what happens if they stop sacrificing to the dragons? What do the dragons do in response? So that's another question
Uh,
too that I think is kind of interesting if players wanted to explore that. Do they try to take down that system because they deem it to be morally reprehensible, or do they go, well, don't mess with it, because what happens if you do, and then those dragons just set the whole world on fire? Perhaps they're right, and what they're doing is the only thing that's keeping the rest of it may be awful, but maybe it's necessary. Sorry, I'm
mhm.
digressing a bit.
No, no, that's fine. That's great. It's good to have that sort of thing going on. Um, no problem. And it gives me time to find some notes.
This is why you have me here, isn't it? I'm here
Yes, there
just
you
to
go.
provide the background chatter while you look for the important stuff. Isn't that right?
Keep on going. Yeah,
Okay.
I had wrote. So, uh, okay, so we have. Let's start a heading here. We have grain smugglers. Okay, well here's the thing. We got one problem
Hmm.
with your story so far with the
Uh-oh.
grain smugglers. If the
He's not smuggling grain. He's smuggling alcohol.
he's
The
fine.
grain's
Okay,
his
all right, my
legitimate
mistake then.
business.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he's so I'm okay. So I okay. Then it's the only problem is I didn't have it all the way down right. Okay, that's fine. All right. Now, so let me put it to you this way. So we're looking for an individual who is doing this. Okay. Here's the next thing. If he's if he's a six,
Oh, I got
he's
a
not the
twist.
he's not the only. Okay. All right. Well, hit me with that
Uh-huh.
then.
Okay. So he is officially an illegal smuggler. He does everything underground. If the authorities in Vitangera ever caught him smuggling alcohol, because they have an official agreement with Voda not to sell any kind of alcohol to them, because it is definitely against the law in their country. So if he was caught by his own legal authorities in Vitangera, he would be arrested and he would be put in jail. However, Mr. Lithgow, our Lithgow type character, is
Right.
actually encouraging him because they need people to be sent to the embers of the sacred flame.
Oh, so they let a little bit slide.
They
So they
look the other way. Voda
yeah.
looks the other way because And also, besides importing in alcohol and forbidden spirits, he is also sending over a very special cocktail that is used for the people who are going to the. It's a mercy that they give to the people who are going to sacrifice to the dragons. The chosen are given a draft that they can take just before the dragons eat them to basically um, so they feel no pain when the time comes. Although it's given to them as a draft that will give them courage.
Okay, why are they being eaten? I thought we were not doing. I thought they were being fed
That's
animals and livestock and stuff, though.
Well, okay, that's the kids version you're talking about if we were going to make any part of this into a kid-friendly version. But in the adult version, they're sacrificing 12 people every 12 years with a mass quantity of livestock. That's why they have to have the embers of the sacred flame to get people to become the chosen. Because no one would really like volunteer to do that normally, although there are a few. But it's the Lake of the Zealous Converts is the name of the lake. And so the majority of the people who are being sent to escort the livestock and be taken by the dragons are, uh-oh, did we lose you? Oh, folks, I think we may have a slight internet disruption here with Storm because he just disappeared off of my page here. I'm going to see what I can find. Hopefully, we can get him back in here. Bear with me just a moment. I hope I didn't scare him off at that time. I'm not going to sacrifice him to the dragons, just for the record. I know it is a bit of a dark story, but I kind of think you can't, I don't know, that you can't really have an interesting story without that. Pardon me just a moment, folks. All right, everybody. Unfortunately, we're having a bit of technical difficulties in our local area, and there appears to be an internet outage in Storm's location. I was just able to confirm that with him on the phone just now. So, oh, well, what do you know? There we go. Okay, I'll let you go. We'll hang up the phone then. Sorry.
Don't know what
Well,
happened.
okay. I thought you had a full-fledged outage over there. We did have
So
some
did I.
thunderstorms in the weather. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm at the mercy of Spectrum, and their mercy is minimal. I don't know. Um, Nothing we can control, folks. Sorry. At least it
Right.
came back. So,
I'm
yeah.
very glad that it came back. Thank you to everyone who stuck with us through that brief interruption in the regularly scheduled program. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I
Oh.
think where we left off is I was trying to justify why we are sacrificing people to dragons. I mean, that's the big controversy.
Hmm.
That's kind of in this story, and this is the adult version, I mean, if you were going to make this story for kids, we had talked about the potential of making kid-friendly adventure gaming stories and RPGs and D&D, all of that kind of stuff, but maybe making it without in that case, you would just be sacrificing livestock to the dragons and not actual people. Even that's a little bit hardcore. That would probably be PG-13 at best, to be sacrificing live animals to dragons that way is a bit disturbing also.
I'm
But in any
here.
case,
Mhm.
hmm?
My question was, what is the sacrifice for? What is it supposed to provide them?
So it's a tradition that they've had over the years, and it began because they believe that without the dragons, they have no fertility for their crops. The dragons built the land that they're on. They're the process of them breeding and coming to that area to breed is what gives them their obsidian that they're able to mine, and all of their income, all of their wealth generation, um, the the livestock that they depend on for food as well, because the trade that they have with Vitangera for the grain that they feed to their livestock, all of that depends on the dragons.
Okay,
So
but okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. So
so it's very common in primitive cultures,
yeah.
that if they have a godlike being, a being that they believe they owe something to, that they will also be, especially a being that can breathe fire out of its mouth and burn you to death in a blink of an eye. They feel the need to appease such a creature, to offer
Okay,
something like, hey, don't burn down of the rest of our villages. Here's our offering to you.
but why not? Okay, but as you said in previous sessions, you like me to challenge these things to keep them tight. So my question is,
Right.
why not just give them a cow to eat?
It's a good question, but you're really asking me to explain the religious motivations of human beings who have actually committed human sacrifice in the past
Sure.
for
Okay, but let's flip it. Let's flip it on its end then, and go from the different direction. Typically,
okay.
in fantasy games, um, dragons are intelligent creatures and are self aware and in some case they don't have to be in our world. So that's not. But in some worlds, they're even capable of casting certain magical spells and such. So
Mhm.
why would if okay, so even if I wasn't an intelligent creature, but I was a beast, a dragon as a beast, I would think that they would prefer the cow. If you're giving me cows and fish and grain, what do I need the scrawny human for to eat? How about that? What are they, why would they do it? Why would the dragon just go, yeah, that's you know, or do they give a shit? That's what I'm asking. Try it that way. I just want to. That's all. Sorry.
It's possible that the dragons really don't want the people, but they're in a feeding frenzy. Basically, they're mating. And as with most other creatures who are in the middle of a mating cycle, they're packing on as many calories as they possibly can in order to complete the production of, in this case, eggs. But if, I don't know if you've ever been around a pregnant woman for any amount of time, but believe me, they'll eat
So
anything.
okay, so normally they'll eat. Okay, that's all right. So you're just packaging them, and the country's putting these people up to it for religious, but also because hey, we don't need these people are kind of criminals. Wasn't that kind of it
And
too?
well, it gives
Get rid of the
the
riffraff.
level of control. It's a it's a means to an end of establishing control. They're very
Okay,
authoritarian.
all
They're
right,
they're very much, what we say goes, and
sure.
this enforces that. I
Okay,
mean,
all right.
how well behaved is your populace if at any moment you can send them off to be fed to a dragon
Okay, okay, sure.
or live
So
their life in service scooping up dragon poop to send off to the neighboring land, or raising livestock in a grueling conditions under extreme, torture and,
Sure.
deprivation
Roger
in the
Dodger. All
embers
right.
of the sacred flame. Yeah.
Okay. So, so now,
And anyone who thinks of challenging the status quo, well, questioning the leadership, questioning the religious leaders, questioning the mayor, questioning
cannibalism is a
anybody
life
with
choice, he
authority
said.
and huh? Who
We,
said that?
we have your wrongs back. Hey, how's it going? And he says, because cannibalism is a life choice.
Well, is it technically cannibalism? Because they're not dragons. They're not eating other dragons,
Each
right?
other's, yeah, yeah. But okay. I'm sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to acknowledge we have guests,
Sorry.
but
Thank you. I get that was funny though. Cannibalism is a
I'm sorry, I threw you off, but I didn't want to
yes.
ignore our
No, no,
listeners.
it's
Sorry.
okay. I
Um,
forgot what I was saying now though.
I'm sorry. I shot it right. I do. You jumped the rails while I talk. So I do that too. Sorry.
It's okay.
Uh, but as far as the NPC that we're coming, oh, you've thought of it. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, as far as the NPC, his motivations are wealth. Obviously, he wants to be
Okay.
very wealthy and
But
he's
if
making a
he's
lot of money from this.
that was the
Hmm?
other part I was at just when the thing cut off on me was if he's got is he got the entirety of the grain trade or is he just one of many?
No, he's one of many, but he's big time because the money that he's been raking in from the illegal trade that he's doing has allowed him to basically buy up the smaller farms and the smaller. And he's working on his own little farming monopoly there. He's got a control. Basically, he can set the prices that everybody else goes by.
So he does have a monopoly.
Not quite, but near enough to he can intimidate anyone else who isn't pricing the same way that he wants things to be priced so that he can make the maximum amount of profit for himself. And if he doesn't like the way, if somebody tries to challenge his hold on the business, he can drive them out of business if he needs to because he's got that much money already.
Okay, but here's now see here again. If you're looking to attain more wealth and you have the power to eliminate a competition that is competing for your profit, why wouldn't you just do that anyway, no matter what, you know?
Because then you have to do all the work yourself. If you can just control them and make sure that they pay like a protection racket, like the mafia does. You can stay in business, but every month I'm going to come around and ask you for a little cut of your business
But why would somebody stay in business if their competition is extorting them?
because they starve otherwise.
Mm, okay.
I mean, ask the bodega owner in New York City why he, gives protection money to the mob. Obviously, he doesn't want to, but if he doesn't, he's gonna he's gonna need some, convalescence in a hospital somewhere.
Right, but the mob probably doesn't control that business. They'll just put a bomb in yours if you don't pay off. The business still has competition. I guess I get what you're going for.
Well, he's still not the only one. There's some other big players, but in his particular area, and he's got enough sway that he can, force some people to work under him if he needs to. And they're doing the work. He's taking the majority of the cut. They're working for peanuts. They're subsistence farmers. They're barely making it. They just want to feed their family. And just a couple of weeks of interruption of them being able to sell their goods to market is enough to drive them under completely. So that's all he has to apply, just a little teeny bit of pressure to keep them in line. And he can buy their crops for cheap and sell them at a much higher price when he ships them over to Voda. A wholesaler. He's buying everything wholesale from the production of the small farmer who he's exploiting the hell out of. And then he's charging maximum price that he can get from Voda and putting all of the profit in his pockets. And he's sitting pretty. And if you want to sell anything, well, you got to ship it out. You don't have a ship. You don't have a means to get it to the Voda market. You have to rely on somebody, and he's in control of a lot of that. So
That's what, right. I was just going to say, instead of making him the grain creator, make him the grain trader. And that's
he's the
how he's,
grain merchant. Yeah, that's that. I thought I had said that. I'm
well,
sorry
you
if
had
I
said
didn't say
something
that to
about him
begin with.
having farms. And I thought that it would be better if he didn't have the farms. He's just got the farms by the short hairs, because you can grow all the grain you want, but you don't have the ship to move it. I do.
Right.
And
He's the
so
merchant. He's
he's got
got
a
the
merchant
contracts.
fleet.
He's right. He's the
Yeah.
merchant. He sells it. He takes the profit. He buys it at the cheap price, sells it at the high price, and he keeps the difference. And same old story.
Right. Right. Okay. All
But
right.
he's also doing the illegal stuff.
Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. So, okay. So the first thing we'll do is let's come up with a name. And he's a local boy, I presume. He's from the country. He's from Witheria or Bytheria, right?
It's it's Vitangera
Vit-
with the
Sorry,
Vitangera.
but he's a local boy, right?
Yes. Well,
Okay,
man, he's an established man. He's probably into his 30s or 40s. He's a solidly he's not a spring chicken, but he's not an elderly man either.
okay,
Right?
all
The
right,
middle-aged man.
okay. So, but when I say local boy, I mean he's from. Now, is he from? Let's give him a city that he
Well,
comes
he
from in
he
the country.
inherited the business. He inherited the business from his father, who
Okay,
established it before him,
okay.
and who's still alive and still criticizes him every chance he gets and tries to push him to do more because he is never quite good enough for daddy. You know how that goes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Standard trope of stories, but because there's some truth to it for a lot of people, not everyone, but
Okay. Alrighty,
unfortunately
alrighty.
too many. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So let's do this. One thing I do want to do is I want to take that tick halter area and move it onto the river.
Yeah, I think there should be some competition for him too. I think that could be something that may be
See, like that.
necessary down the road. Yeah. I'd put it right on the lake shore, the other lake, the southern lake there.
Uh, well, we had other plans for that, so I'm going to put him
Oh,
here at the
okay.
base,
Okay.
and there. So this. So we'll put them from the Citadel. He's in the city. He comes from
Okay.
the city that's part of the Citadel here. How about that?
I can't see the map, so I don't know.
Oh, I forgot I had to reboot. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Got all tripped up.
I wish your map had a little like pointer you could use to point to the areas that you're
The best
looking
I
at.
can do is make this little circle. Can you see that when I do that at all, or no?
A little bit. It
I
may
don't know if
help if
there's
I
any.
move my screens around. Hold on just a second. Mm, mm. Yeah, that'll work.
Can you see that very well or no?
I can see it's tiny. My eyes aren't that great, but don't worry about me. You're good.
Okay. So we have a 43-year-old male,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Uh, let's come up with a name.
Okay.
If you want some help. See, here's another thing, folks. I'm not afraid, and you shouldn't be afraid. Not that I'm afraid isn't the right term. What am I saying? But there's no reason that you have to mind bend to get every name yourself. There's some excellent name generators. AI isn't all evil. I know some people get real upset about AI in art, but coming up with a name shouldn't be that big of a thing. But either way, there's fantasy, what's it called? FantasyNameGenerator.com or .org or whatever. There's a ton of these kind of things, little tools um, that can create a name for you, or at least something that you can work with. Um, modify to your liking, something like that. So, uh, how about what do we got? Oh, that's not the right one. How about a fantasy name? So he's going to be a human. We're going to make him a human, obviously. Both these people are going to be human. The demi-humans are kind of in different places. So how about this? How about wow, these are Grandoom. These are a little bit hokey. That's the thing. Sometimes let's see this. You got any ideas, Magenta? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I
Did I?
do actually.
Okay.
Sorry, I had muted it for a second because I was getting a sip of something to drink. So, um, but yeah, his name would be John Dees.
Okay.
That's JONDIES. John Dees.
Okay. DIES, you say?
DIES. Yeah. Or John
DIE.
Dice. I don't know how you want to pronounce it, but yeah, John Dice might be right, but kind of sounds too much like jaundice. So we're going with John Dees.
John dies tonight.
Yes. John dies. That's okay. I wasn't trying to do any foreshadowing there, but yeah.
All right. All right. Um,
And his last name is Vang,
how about we
spelled
change?
W-A.
Oh,
No?
it's a full name, John Dice. How about if we change the S's to Z's
Okay. Sure.
and the
Change the S to Z's. That's good. John
last name?
Dice Vang, W-A-N-G, but it's pronounced Vang.
All righty.
Or you can make it Vong if you prefer, V-O-N-G. It's up to you. Or W-O-N-G.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. So,
That's his name. It's random, I know, but
uh-huh. Okay. All right. Okay.
and then we had a list of like some other questions that we kind of want to include, like obviously his personal motivations, I think, if you want to put those down, wealth and power, and just this, he's driven by the desire to um his father's influence is really what's the other driving factor.
Okay. Yeah, we want to, let's, we gave him, you know, so driven by wealth or by desire for wealth and success and daddy issues.
Yes, definitely daddy issues for this guy, unfortunately.
Okay. All righty. What else do we need to know?
He's a
So go ahead.
he is a very well-dressed man for someone who works with and very fastidious. He doesn't like to get dirty. He works with these farmers, but he looks down on them and he doesn't want the dirt to touch him because he views
Okay.
himself as superior to them. And so anything that, he doesn't want any hay stuck to his clothes or,
Plus,
doesn't want to be.
it's well known that every girl is crazy for a sharp-dressed man.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't really care about that.
Okay. He's well, that's fine. Okay. What's
He's
his
married, got a family of his own.
okay, that's good to know. That's something. Married with
Uh-huh.
children.
Oh
Okay.
no. Now he's gonna have to be a shoe salesman. We can't have that.
what's his father's name? Let's come up with his father too.
Well, his father has the same last name, but
Obviously.
he's
Sure.
yeah, but his first name is Leoder. Lioder.
Any is this
Do you not like it? You can
no,
change
no,
it
I
if you
no,
don't
that's
like it.
fine. That's fine. I'm just wondering where's this is this
It's
uh,
random. I picked random names.
okay. That's
Just went
fine.
to a
That's
random
cool.
name. I took your advice and went to a random name
There you go.
generator.
I thought
Yeah,
maybe it was some local thing that you were
no.
okay. That's
If
fine.
you don't like Leoder, you can make him Brolworth.
No, Lee order's fine. That's great. We'll just stick with
Okay.
what we got. We don't need to go any. I wasn't my. You were just fast, and I was like, "Well, where are you getting these from?" That's great, though. Took my advice, like you say.
Yes, I did.
Okay. All righty. All right.
And his wife's name is Sussis.
I
Weird name.
I want to re-roll that one.
Okay. Well, then. Numa. Odd, right?
No, that's fine. That works good. Okay. And it does. We don't want to get super detailed, but there is a good reason. How many children? Let's just do that.
He has 3 kids.
Okay. And we don't need to do any more than age, sex, and first name.
Okay. He has his oldest daughter is Luzira. Luzirha.
Okay.
And she is 15.
Okay. Next.
And he's got a son who is 12, and his name is Tren.
Okay. Alrighty.
And then
And yep.
a younger son, the
Okay.
youngest that he has is
Hmm.
5, which
Oh,
his wife is very angry about even today. No, just
okay.
kidding. But actually, probably not. And that son's name is Julur, Julur.
Julur. Okay. All right, good. Now we got him.
Yep.
Excellente. Groovy, groovy, groovy. So that's him. Then we got your guy. And he's, well, let's do one last thing. This would also be important. Let's get the name of his company. Or yeah.
Hmm.
I'll work on that myself. That's a
Yeah,
hard
I'm
one.
drawing a blank. I don't want to do the classic, name it after your family name. I think that would be
How about got a couple ideas here that the computer's helping me with. How about the Azure uh, Galleons?
nah, not like it.
Okay, the Golden Sales Trading Company.
What if we do something that means like uh well, I was kind of trying to think of like doing something that was kind of like Wings of the Dragon, dragon wing trading. I don't know.
Okay, let's. I got an idea.
Or
I got
dragon
it.
wind. I don't know. Yeah, go for it, whatever. Because my creativity is waning all of a sudden.
Maybe you need some snack of some sort to assist you.
A snack?
I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
Here's a couple. See if this works for you. Oh, here's one. The Emberwing Consortium.
I like it.
Okay.
Ember Wing Consortium. Or Ember Wing. Actually, I don't like the consortium so much, but Ember Wing Trading Company I like.
Okay. Here's just to give you an alternative, just for the because I was told once by my author sister to never settle on the first without at least looking at a second. How about the Wyvern's Wake Trading Fleet or Trading Company?
Wyvern implies to me a specific type of creature, which is not involved in this
It's a
trade at
Dra
all.
well, it's a fair enough, the
No.
Wyvern is dragon kind, but yes, it's right. That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna okay, all right, we'll stick with Emberwing Trading Company then. Okay, good deal.
What's another word for trading company though? Besides consortium. I just don't like consortium. I don't know. Just it's too consortium. I don't, you know how some words just it strikes me the same way that moist does a lot of people. I just don't like the word consortium.
Uh,
It kind of reminds me of like someone who's like, yeah, I was consorting with I don't know.
uh, how about Merchant Guild? Trade
Uh
Association? Commerce
import
Syndicate?
export.
How about, oh, you don't
Huh?
know? You didn't watch Seinfeld.
Oh,
It's going to do a Seinfeld reference, but you didn't watch that. Art
sorry.
Vandelay? Art Vandelay Import Exports? It's a
I
that
don't
was
know.
that was from Seinfeld. Anyway, Trade Association,
Or
Commerce.
or just Ember Wing shipping,
Okay,
just plain shipping. I mean, that's what they're doing, right?
okay,
Shipping company. I like it's just direct and it's exactly what it does.
okay,
And they're known for all of their fleets have bright red sails.
okay. All right, that's cool. Something to a little bit of flavor
Yeah. Shaped like flames.
with a flame job, red with yellow flames on them. How about that?
No,
What?
I don't like that.
What do you mean you don't, bro? I'll tell you what.
Red and black flame design, maybe, but not yellow.
Okay.
The yellow is not a hot flame, but black flame is the hottest flame you can get. So red and black flames. Sorry. Also, I want him to have a particular flaw. He's grossed out by things. He's got like he won't go to the docks if there are any of the fertilizer ships coming in. He just won't do it. He'll send he'll send his wife to do it because he won't be he can't stand to be around it. Makes him want to throw up.
How about
And I want there to be a story behind that, but it doesn't necessarily have to come up unless it's brought up.
let's see.
I want it to be a story where he was helping his father at the docks with the shipping when his father's trying to show him the ropes, and he fell off the dock and landed into a big pile of dragon manure in one of the ships. And so now to this very day, he won't go anywhere near the docks if they're unloading manure. Is that a crazy story or what?
It's a crazy story. It's not inconceivable. It sounds like you might have pulled that out of the
Back to the Future.
yes.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm putting it in there and including it as a detail, and it's not something that's going to come up unless, say, your party needs to travel and they need to take one of this guy's ships and they need to leave by a certain day, but he won't go because there's a manure ship unloading at the same time. It could become relevant at that point, and then it would be something that they would have to work around or something. I don't know, just a little. To me, I think it's kind of interesting when there's just some minor inconveniences to players that they have to work a way around sometimes. I mean, not everything needs to be interfered with, but every once in a while, if it's like, okay, we really need to get on this ship, but now you're telling me what you mean you won't go there because they're unloading manure? Are you kidding me? And you have to figure out how to deal with that, and it's not something you can deal with by pulling your sword or casting a magic spell. It's the more ordinary, how do we find a way around this minor issue?
Mm.
Do you get I mean, am I off I feel free to not include it if you don't want to, but it's just something that I think about. And
Okay.
listeners are probably thinking, I'm glad Magenta's not the one doing the DMing. I don't want
Um,
to have to navigate around a poop problem. But but if I were running it, that's what would happen. You'd have to
uh,
go and have an awkward dinner with his wife and keep her company because she's very, very lonely because he won't spend any time with her. And then you'll have to take her out to the docks, but you have to like buy her a nice dress or something so that she'll go with you. You all right there, Storm?
yeah, I'm just trying to work with this a little bit. How about
You want to drop the whole manure story, don't you?
a little bit?
It's okay. 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 But I still want him to be a prissy fellow. I'm just saying. He's kind of overly prissy.
Okay.
I don't want him to be someone that you go, "Oh, I really like that guy." I think he should be kind of Ugh,
All right. Okay.
I guess we have to deal with this guy. That's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Personal bias. I just don't like that kind of guy.
Right. Right. Okay. Uh, so there's okay. So we have him. Now let's do the Lithgow guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're not going to call him that.
Well, yeah. I do like the idea of keeper of the faith, defender of the faith, maybe.
Enforcer.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's what he is. But you could make him keeper of the faith because he would be headquartered at Lantern's Keep. And he's going to be kind of the he's the leader of the country. They don't have a separate president. Everything is ruled by the religious. The church runs the country. The kingdom of
Right.
Voda could
Well,
be known as the faithful of Voda, I
yeah,
suppose.
right. But you don't want this guy to be the leader of the whole country. He wouldn't be bothering. This is, I mean, he's got a country to run. He's not going to be chasing, you know, rum runners. You
Oh,
want,
I gotcha.
yeah. This
So
is
he's the mayor of Vallejo.
well. I think what you want to get is somebody who has. Th- the papacy has a police force.
Uh-huh.
So you want this guy to be kind of a they're
Head inquisitor kind of guy.
yeah um part of the inquisitorial force, but they're dealing with material goods and stuff like contraband, things like that.
Okay. I don't have a whole lot of experience with that. I was raised by atheists. So
Uh-huh.
this is your show.
Well, just think of Elliot Ness, but instead of having authority derived from federal government, authority derived from federal religious, that kind of thing. So, um,
Well,
does
see,
that work for you?
Elliot Ness had to, I don't know, because Elliot Ness had to prove his case. This guy can just go,
That was only in the stories. The real
oh,
man was, yeah. There really was an Elliot Ness. So that, yeah,
okay.
yeah, and
But I
it.
mean, we have a system of justice that requires evidence.
No, all I'm
They
saying
would
is
have
that
a system of,
is Elliot. What I'm trying to say is Elliot Ness is largely associated with the prohibition and going after rum runners. He ended
I
up being more of
gotcha.
that, but
Okay.
that's where he started, was just being part of the police that were dealing with prohibition. And so what I was saying was, you have somebody who's doing a similar job, but they're doing it with the authority of the federal government. That's a religious theocracy based government, as opposed to America, which was just the federal government. So, but that kind of vibe. He's chasing rum runners. Now he's got people that are corrupt, and he knows it, that are working under him, that are letting things slide by. But he's also got superiors that are saying, let it go, because if we're too efficient, then we won't have fodder for the dragons. So
Right.
he's got this deal where he kind of some days he's got to kind of balance, you know,
You can't have,
enforcing
y-
and sometimes letting it go. You know what I mean?
right. So he's basically the moral enforcer of the country, but he's got to let there be temptation. Some temptation has to get through in order to know who it is that has poor morals and needs to be cleansed through the ember of the sacred flame. Does that make
Well,
sense?
I was trying to go for somebody who was more like a customs officer, or a like he's not the entire country. He's
Yeah. No,
focused.
I get that. I think
Yeah.
I agree with you on that.
Hmm.
But his role is to enforce the morality, the rules of the church, and those who are heretics. He's the heretic hunter, basically. His job is to the people who won't abide by their sacred laws or dictates of no alcohol. You're not allowed to um, speak ill of the church or its teachings. I don't know. You were in charge of this one. Uh-oh, sorry. All I can think of are the kind of like, the morality police, like the mullahs and the ayatollahs and those kinds of guys. That's where my mind goes to, or the inquisitors of the, people who are, I mean, this isn't very far from burning people at the stake, really. They're just using dragons to do it instead, but
Right.
so they're hunting down heretics and stamping out disagreement, anyone who weakens the faith or might be a temptation to others to turn their back on the faith. That's who's going to get sent to the embers. But they need enough people to be able to take care of the large herds that are being given to the dragons every 12 years, and also to be a warning to anyone who might get out of line in the country for political reasons as well. But he's just the law enforcement arm of it, basically.
Right. He's just the law enforcement arm of it. And what I was trying to make was somebody who works primarily with the imports and export, well, imports at the town of Valleja.
Okay. So he's like the custom agent, the custom
Right. Right.
enforcer.
The
Yeah.
customs. Yes. Yes. Exactly that. Um, and
And there'll be
well,
other
or we could do
people who
this. He could be here's another way. He could be like you say, he could be more of a morality police. And the head of that, there's a section that he's part of it is a section that's custom agents dealing uh with smuggling and
contraband.
stuff, contraband. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So he's got this weird position where he knows there's people who are corrupt in his organization. So do his superiors, and they're saying let some of it through. But his conundrum is how much and which ones,
Right.
you know. So
And
he's
it's
kind of
shaking his faith to some extent himself because what he's presenting to everyone else, which is this organization that is true to its beliefs, is actually it's violating its own principles to allow this contraband in just to make it easier for them to catch people because just simply because they need to fill the workforce at the embers of the sacred flame because they got to keep those beds full.
mm-hmm. Okay. So, all righty.
Also, about the embers of the sacred flame,
Yes.
besides keeping a running ranch and keeping livestock for to sacrifice to the dragons every 12 years, they can't use any of the dragons as meat, so they don't have any kind of meat production there. But they do produce milk and cheese products, and they trade that for all of the supplies that they need that are, food for their own people, clothing, things that they need for keeping the place going. In addition to the donations of the people, of course.
We had that as being a a kind of work camp with farming, and the
Yeah,
farming included cattle because the cattle were being given to the dragons as well.
correct. And
Okay.
because they can't use the cattle for food, they use except they can for milk and cheese production,
Hmm.
butter, that kind of stuff,
Right.
and ice cream.
Yep. Ice cream.
Well, it's cold there.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Um, so I had a what do you call it? A picture made up of the ships. Of the ships as well.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. Hmm. Righto.
So this guy who's going to be the enforcer guy or the customs agent guy, his name is going to be Belorn Grotsk.
Belorn.
Ballorn. Belorn.
Okay. Belorn Grosk.
Grotsk.
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 Okay.
Like Grotsky without the E.
Gotcha. All right.
That's his name.
Okay.
And he's got gray hair with one of those like monks, monk pattern baldness. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
He looks a bit like Friar Tuck
Right.
by way of Jonathan Lithgow.
Mm-hmm. All righty.
But the robes of the members of the religion of the Sacred Flame,
Yes.
they would wear black robes with red trim, black and red, definitely black and red, or red and black, depending on their status. But the highest leader of the church, though, would wear a combination of black, red, and orange.
Okay.
Yeah. He's gonna kind of look like the El Camino I used to have way back when I was a teenager, with the flame paint down the side. Just kidding, but kind of not. I love
That's
that car.
oh, that's funny.
I bought it from a guy named Critter. True story.
Wow, that's some
I know. Don't even. And Critter looked like a Viking too. Totally. Great big red beard. Also, in the kingdom of Voda, people with red hair are considered blessed by the dragon.
pro ginger.
Yeah. They like their ginger.
All right.
But in the kingdom of Voda, you don't really want to be blessed by the dragon.
Okay.
Not up close and personal, anyway. You're writing down all these details, right?
I am.
Okay.
I'm also making pictures.
Okay, cool. while you're doing that, I'm imagining I'm going on a skiing trip in these mountains right next to the right south of Lake Sarth here.
Really, there you go. See, that's one other thing you want to do is think of things that people do for recreation and vacations. It may seem like it's not. That may seem like what, but trust me, you want to do that.
Well, that would mean that would be a place where you could go and get transportation there
Hmm.
easy enough, that people would be wanting to go there for the reason of skiing. So you could get a carriage there or
Hmm.
transportation of some sort there. There'd be other people going there with you if you were to head in that direction for something.
Right. So anyway, I was trying to get AI to do. Sometimes this AI stuff, I mean, it just doesn't work. There we go. But it's just he's ain't gonna.
What were you trying to get it to do?
Mm. You know, intelligence is not what this thing should. It's not very. I was just trying to get it to make the picture of the guy we were making.
Which one?
The current guy we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
I'm probably,
Baloran.
you know,
Hold on just a second. Let's see what I can come up with here.
anyway. There we go. That's as good as this junky thing will let me do. How are you? What are you doing? Are you doing the same thing? We are.
Yeah, I was, but I'm not sure it's very successful. Did you create something?
Yeah,
Were you
but
happy with it?
Not really. It's kind of a
Okay.
frustrating thing to work with. But anyway, I don't know that we've got anybody watching. We're kind of, are we? Got anybody watching at this point? Might want to.
Mm, I think we should probably wrap it up for the evening if you're, I think maybe time to do that. We got a kind of late start and, you know, about 2 hours now, so we can kind of pick it up from here tomorrow when we reconvene at about 9 p.m. tomorrow. Does that
Yep.
work for you?
Yep. We'll do that. We'll see you guys
Sounds
then.
good. All
Okay.
righty. Thanks
This
everybody for hanging out with us and hope you have a good evening and happy gaming.